welcome to the 74th episode of Growing Up Geek, the weekly podcast for geek entertainment and nostalgia. My name is Brad, and I am joined by a man who has never once inhaled bread mold that he knows of, my brother Rob.
It didn't eat my face, neither.
I should explain that I've been having trouble with my car where there's a liner in the back in the trunk that's, I guess, damaged because the water from all this rain we've been having is just seeping in. So I'm getting like large puddles of water pooling in my car.
Ugh.
It's not pretty, but Amber keeps saying, you gotta get that fixed because you're gonna inhale bread mold like that guy on TV. And then, that guy doesn't have a face.
I don't think it was that easy. Like, it wasn't like he inhaled bread mold and then his face fell off. It was more like freak accident.
Yeah.
A mold was eating, like a flesh-eating mold was eating his face. They had to remove surgically much of his face.
Like eyes, nose.
Everything but like his chin, like his lower jaw was taken out. But his wife stuck by him, so she's a good lady.
Yeah, that does show dedication, And I actually wondered when I saw that, I'm like, can you live? You can't live without your eyes and nose and stuff. Then I realized, yeah, I guess as long as you have some sort of way to get food in and breathe, like, you could be fine. But I think he attaches like a fake face. I can't remember.
Yeah, there's a fake face attached. And I don't know, but I'm pretty sure when he cries, it comes out of his mouth.
Oh, it's like a super villain, like a James Bond villain or something.
Yeah.
No face. But, I mean, it made me very deathly afraid of bread mold. And I think for the week after I watched that, if I saw a piece of bread with like a tiny, blue spot or whatever, I just wrapped it up, tossed it real quick.
Well, I mean, come on. We feed moldy bread to birds all the time, and how many of them have their faces fall off?
I don't know. I haven't checked. We can ask Wolfram Alpha later.
Yeah, we'll do that.
So, on the subject of that, let's jump into geek news.
Mm-hmm.
Rob, what was your favorite news story this week?
If you can't tell already, I twittered about this. Wolfram Alpha was recently released.
Mm-hmm.
I've yet to really figure it out. Is Alpha just like, well, it's an alpha test?
I think that's the name of the search engine, and it was designed by a British physicist whose last name is Wolfram.
Hey, well, I think it's an intimidating name. If you tell somebody to go to Google, it's just like, oh, yeah, you mean Google? Yeah. Tell somebody to go to wolframalpha.com. They're going to be like, can you repeat that?
Well, it sounds like a planet in Star Trek.
It really does. It sounds like, do I need a telescope to access this website?
So tell everybody what it is.
Wolfram Alpha is a computational knowledge engine. At least that's what they call themselves.
Right.
It's not necessarily a search engine, though up front it looks and feels like a search engine.
Right.
For example, I want to know how far Earth is from Mars right now. So I'm going to type that in. Earth to Mars.
He's typing. And at the core of this is basically a math engine. I think they said it's called Mathematica, which is the software written by this guy.
So here's what it found out for me. Right now, Mars is 186.8 million miles away.
Boom.
And that's information that's going to be changing. That's not static because the different orbits and things like that.
So it's up to date, as opposed to like an old blog or something coming up under the result.
Right.
It's trying to calculate right now.
Right, it is up-to-date information. Listeners might be interested to know, me and Brad currently are 257 miles away from each other.
And yet we're still speaking, so there you go.
Exactly, through the power of the internet. That is a half-hour flight from Pittsburgh to Philadelphia. Let's see, the population, you have 316,000 people living around you.
Okay.
I have 1.4 million living around me.
I guess we see who wins.
I definitely do win.
Do you think Google might try to buy this or roll it into itself? Or?
That's definitely a possibility. I mean, Google's goal is to gather all the knowledge of the universe and, destroy the planet and then leave.
Yeah, it seems like a really powerful tool. It also seems a little scary. You mentioned this thing about the racism controversy.
I mean, it's just a fluke, but it happens if you type in the word dumb.
Right.
It shows like basically this graphical representation of all the synonyms associated with that word.
Right.
Unfortunately, one of these synonyms that it just kind of randomly selects is black.
Right.
Yeah.
Which makes Wolfram Alpha almost seem like it's like a person who has a bit of a chip on his shoulder about black people, but he's really smart. So like you just kind of this reminds me of the WW Wizard from Aqua Teen.
This is live streaming Broadbrain.
Yeah, and he had like an attitude, but he was like really smart. That's kind of what that sounds like to me. I know it's not legit, but
yeah. Well, some people have actually said it does kind of have an attitude. Like, if you just type something that it doesn't understand, it gives you a little bit of like, Wolfram Alpha isn't sure what to do with your input.
Yeah, Wolfram Alpha can't speak down to your level. Can you please try to come up to mine?
Exactly.
It sounds like the arrogance sometimes found in the scientific community, where it's like, trust us on this one. You know, that kind
Well,
of
in the face of pure, unadulterated, holy knowledge, I mean, you do kind of feel small.
Yeah. So there you go. So Wolfram Alpha, check it out.
It's a truth bucket that you stare into.
Oh,
and ask a
right.
question.
Yeah, from Upright Citizens Brigade.
That's right. Okay, so that's Wolfram Alpha. Brad.
Yeah.
What was your favorite news story this week? Kind of interested in this.
Yeah, I showed this to you right before we got online here. This is a promo that went up online for ABC's remake of V, which was an 80s TV series about alien invaders. I talked about this before when the news hit that they were going to make this, and honestly, I wasn't expecting much, but after watching this promo, it's of better quality than I expected. So to play this out for the audience here, it opens with the actress who plays Juliet on Lost, sort of being wakened from her sleep by some sort of loud sound, and they go outside, and there's basically motherships hovering over all of these world cities.
Very ID4.
Very ID4, although it should be said that V was out before ID4, and when you go and look at the old clips of V, it's very close to what they did in Independence Day. So I think it's a case of one copying the other. But they display this video on the bottom of their ship, which is basically Morena Baccarin from Firefly. She played Inara, if people remember that show. And she's saying, "Do not fear us." You see in the promo the controversy, you know, are they good or are they bad? And then they start healing people, and so, you know, there's this acceptance. And of course, as we know, nothing can end well. And there's a brief clip toward the end of some lizard face, which is what I was really looking forward to. And, you know, if you've seen that show, you'll know it gets a little weird, especially with gerbils. But anyway, I thought this was just, like I said, better quality than I expected. And my favorite part of it is whenever the aliens are giving tours of their mothership and they invite up the news media, and the guy asks, "Is there anything I should know before the interview?" And she says, "Just be sure not to ask anything that would paint us in a negative light." I thought that was a very Frost Nixon moment.
Yeah.
But I thought that was cool. So I'm intrigued, but I showed it to you, and I wanted to get your 2 cents as well. What did you think of this?
Yeah, definitely interesting stuff. The big twist being that rather than in Independence Day, it's like, boom, explosion, yeah, they're evil. This is very much intrigue. So it's like, are they good? Are they bad? And I think that there's probably a lot of modern day parallels going on here with the concept of government and things like that. You mentioned Frost Nixon, and you can see it's like this assertion of power, ever so slight, but like, don't question our authority.
I actually don't remember if the aliens were all that evil, or if, I don't remember kind of where it went. I know the original series was cut short. There was sort of a cliffhanger, and then the network canceled it. With this, hopefully there'll be a resolution. And Lost won't be on again until 2010. So this might help to fill that void.
Yeah, and it is a lot of ABC kind of like staple actors. Pretty much the cast of ER once did a made-for-TV movie called Failsafe. And, And it was all live, like it was live footage, but it was about a mix-up. It causes an atomic incident.
Yeah, I guess it's like a mini-series, maybe like a TV event or whatever. But we'll see. There's no details at the end of this promo, even to when it's going to air, but it's supposedly going to come out in the fall. So check that out. That's V for all you youngsters who might not remember the original. And speaking of revisiting the past with remakes, our main topic this week is Bionic Commando, the second remake, actually, of a classic Nintendo game that Capcom has made. The first was last year's Rearmed. And am I confusing people?
No, you're not.
Yeah, this can get a little crazy, but last year's Rearmed was basically a sort of a skinned version of the NES Classic. For those who haven't played it, the guy is a Bionic Commando. He's got a super long arm that shoots out and grabs stuff. It's pretty fun. It's pretty hard, actually. But, boy, we spent a lot of time playing that as kids. And this is a third-person action version of that, much more of the next-generation graphics. The plot is that the original character from Bionic Commando has been busted out of prison, or has busted himself out of prison. There's some skepticism about bionics, of which he is one. There's sort of like a war-torn landscape, and he goes back in to kick some butt. let's get your thoughts here.
Well, currently, I mean, my impressions are fairly optimistic. It's maybe not the kind of fast-paced arcade action I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of skill involved.
Yes.
And in that light, I almost want to say that it's definitely a Capcom game. I mean, I know it was developed by Grin, but there are these sort of things that you can see in Capcom games that I don't know if these are things that they push for, but
yeah.
One is upgrading. Like, as you play through, not only are you getting the handle of just the root gameplay, but you're also slowly gaining more and more abilities. So there's this kind of inherent learning curve to all of it.
Right.
You know, Dead Rising, Resident Evil, and now this. Mm-hmm. When you first pick it up, you're like, I don't know what to do. Crap, I'm falling. I'm dying a lot. Oh, man.
Yeah.
But sooner or later, you start to get the hang of it, and then you start to feel really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Swinging from thing to thing, how to take guys out quickly. You sort of develop your own style of playing. And that's really a nice thing about this game. In the end, I'd say it is difficult, but I don't think it's extremely difficult. And I think slowly you're going to get to a point where the difficulty of the game is increasing as your skills increase at a pretty even pace.
Yeah, just to spell out a little bit more, to get the farthest jump off of your swing, you need to release the trigger when this little blue indicator appears. It's not at the furthest distance of your swing, which you would think is when you'd let go. It's sort of midway through your swing, and the timing there is pretty narrow. I actually found this game to be really frustrating during the first couple hours of play. In fact, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to record how many times I die. And I died about 25 times on this one particular part where you have to swing over an ocean. If you fall into the water in this game, you die. You can also be killed by radiation, of which there is a lot of that. But there are parts of the game where you have to get that timing right. And initially I was like, oh my god, and I would like fly past the object, I would whip around in midair, and I would try to shoot back, and I would fall. Really frustrating. And then eventually I kind of got the hang of it. I could sort of feel when I was under things, when I could, it becomes sort of almost second nature.
Yeah.
A little bit like Resident Evil, overcoming the totally different way that this game plays from other games. How long did it take you to get better at it?
I mean, it maybe took me an hour or two. I think the big thing is don't shrug aside the tutorial,
Right.
Pay attention to what they're telling you, because otherwise you're going to be in a sad place. At first I didn't even realize the little blue indicator for when to release. I just was like assuming, like, I guess you don't want to release all the way at the end, because
physics.
Yeah, it's physics. If you throw a baseball, you don't throw it once your arm is all the way out. You throw it halfway through.
Wolfram Alpha would have told you that, but yeah.
Yeah.
The other frustrating thing about dying when you do die is that there's this god-awful reload screen.
Yeah.
And I did... Yeah. Did you find that to be annoying?
That, again, is another thing that I kind of chalk up to Capcom. Like, it's really bad handling on the back end of the game. It's like the loading and the saving and everything is always, like, so broken in all these games.
Like the Dead Rising save system?
Yeah, one
famous.
save between all of it. There's only 3 saves in this game, but, you only have one persistent path.
Yeah, and I normally complain about save systems that are unforgiving. I found this to be pretty well paced because there are small levels, and each level when you finish it is another save point. And there's even mid-level saves.
Mm-hmm. But see, I'm not okay with how it's divided up like that. Really, in this day and age, with a game as linear as this, there should be some sort of asynchronous loading or whatever as you're going through these tunnels, which are the waypoints.
Right.
Obviously, I don't want to create an elevator situation from Mass Effect.
Oh, yeah.
Where you're riding an elevator for an hour, but...
No, it's like a 10-second load, but they are pretty frequent, especially if you die. Which I don't understand that, because how is it that the game doesn't have it already loaded into memory when you just were flying over that pit and it has to reload, the whole level? That to me seems really weird.
Especially, I know Prince of Persia is a favorite game of yours. Yeah. There's kind of a movement to have more forgiving, stuff. Like, you fail, but then it's instantly you're back in it. Load screens shouldn't have to be a punishment,
Yeah, I said to Amber, where's Elika when you need her? The girl that saves you in Prince of Persia, but just by pulling you up. I could have so used that mechanic. because it's challenging initially to get the hang of it. But dude, let's talk about once you do get the hang of it. The scale of these levels is pretty awesome. The trees or caves or skyscrapers or whatever. The verticality is a term that's been thrown around a lot, but literally there is one level where I was just like, this is awesome. There was like a greenhouse with an insanely high glass ceiling, and you could swing on that ceiling and whip yourself across this massive greenhouse, and then there was a hole that opened in the floor that you could fall into, and it led to this very deep underground like fissure. It was bliss. Like the swinging, that was the word that came to mind. Like, you do feel really cool, you know?
Yeah.
There are some slight frame issues, I think, with the graphics a little bit. It's not as clean as Resident Evil, but there is just a real lushness and a real like good detail to the world.
Now, I've only been in the city. I understand it branches out into the jungle and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, and dude, total Tarzan action when you're in the jungle.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like Spider-Man. That's one of the things I can really equate it to. It's Spider-Man with a gun.
It's Spider-Man, but as if you really were Spider-Man and needed to control your webs so that there was always a real building there. Because the funny part about Spider-Man is there's never really anything that he's grabbing onto.
Yeah.
He's just shooting webs out indiscriminately. No, not in this game. You actually have to have a thing nearby that you can grab. But in a way, that means you can treat the level like your sort of like gymnastics course or something, where you're bouncing off a wall, you're swinging from a telephone pole, you're using that to take a midair rocket shot at somebody. There's a lot to like here. I think.
There are moments when you'll see a level and you just kind of like think to yourself, yeah, can't wait to start swinging on this, you know?
I will say another negative point. This is maybe a minor one to some people, but your character is a jerk. I got a real Reign of Fire vibe out of this. If you saw that movie, it's Christian Bale and Matthew McConaughey just trying to outman each other. There's a point where they come into a funeral and Matthew McConaughey's like, sorry to interrupt your little soiree. You know, that's totally what I got from this.
Right.
You know, it's not true manliness, it's just little kids.
Yeah, and I absolutely feel like the Batitude is a little laughable at times. He literally says, sucks to be you. After killing
when he shoots a guy.
And it's like, I wondered at that very moment if there was a writer, like, for this, or they just stuck a guy in the booth. You know, they have him play the game, and as he does, he's like, well, that was cool.
Yeah, the voice is done by the lead singer of Faith No More.
No way.
Yeah. People might remember their "What Is It?" Their hit.
Epic.
Yeah. So just picture "What Is It?" every time you shoot somebody, and you'll get the idea of this game. There's actually a boss fight that I did literally where he goes, "Is that your energy bar, or are you just happy to see me?" or something like that. It was really sad. He references the energy bar, like what he sees it, you know. And so, I mean, that sours it for me a little bit, but I'm going on too long about that because you could always mute the game.
Well, yeah, but you shouldn't have to. And on that note, please don't mute this game because it has some amazing music.
It does.
Simon Viklund, I guess his name is, the composer for this game.
Right.
Also the same composer for Bionic Commando Rearmed, just he works for Grin.
Right.
He did an amazing job. I kind of wish I had his job where they hand him this 80s soundtrack and say, go and do a million great things with it.
Yeah. Great uses of the theme, man. From the piano-y version on the title screen to like the really epic version when you're in a boss fight. I enjoyed that so much. Unfortunately, they've changed the character just into this just idiot, which is really sad. It doesn't honor the nostalgia whatsoever. It more like just tramples on it. But
yeah, the music makes me hope for a guy who's a lot more, hero kind of American patriot. I think what you thought Rad was in the original game. This guy I don't even know if he fits this music.
He's so angry and he's just angst.
Yeah,
it's dated rock, tropes. It's like the puddle of mud or something. It's not even current like rock. Like even having the Faith No More singer, it feels accurate.
Some sort of white guy with dreadlocks. What was that band? Dope.
I don't know.
Something like that. Like this guy. I mean, well, granted, he has been locked up for a while.
It's true. So he decided to lock it up when he was in there, lock his hair up. But dude, I don't know. Anyway, I would say I'm gonna recommend this as a rental. I don't think that there's going to be enough here to justify a purchase, but while I'm playing it, I'm having a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. This is a rental. If it gets amazing at some point. I may choose to keep it, but I saw a Dark Sector ad sort of on one of the billboards, and this game gets me excited about that game.
Yeah.
Because Dark Sector, which is coming up, has a big sort of open world feel, very physics based. Instead of being a swing arm, though, in that case it's a rocket pack.
Right.
I want that fluidity of just swinging from level to level and not having to pause with these load screens.
Yeah.
So I kind of been looking forward to Dark Sector if that's what that's going to be, because this game minus load screens would be awesome.
There you go. So that is Bionic Commando, and before we wrap up our show every week, we love to get nostalgic and reminisce about growing up geek. This week, I figure we'll talk about a big geek show, TV show, that we watched that we have not discussed yet, which is Alf.
Hey.
Alien life form. Everybody pretty much has seen Alf. Don't touch that dial. I'm going to eat a cat or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And I was really into Alf for a while. I had an Alf doll.
Well, I remember your Alf underwear.
Oh my God, yeah. Well, that's freaky, but yes, we are brothers. This should be clarified again in case someone's tuning in late. Yes, I had Alf underoos. That is correct.
The logo was like him kind of, like, it was sort of like the Porky Pig, that's all folks sort of thing, where he's coming out of this hole and giving the thumbs up, but this was placed on the back of the underoos, so it really was like Alf was emerging from your rear.
Right, poor placement. Along those lines, I do remember the Alf doll that I had, which our dog Benny proceeded to violate once while we were I was laying on the bed once with him, and he just jumped up on that Alf doll, and we were like, no Benny, no, But there was of course the Alf cartoon, which was really weird, like science fiction kind of thing, because it was set on Melmac, and it was with his family. Alf's real name apparently is Gordon Shumway, and his dad and his sister and everything were there, and you saw like life on his alien world, which was this real like Eon Flux style animation, really like...
Yeah, I mean, it was actually cool. I remember the donut places, a dunk, 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 and dunka diarrhea.
Well, we said Dunka Diarrhea, but it wasn't Dunka Diarrhea in the thing.
What was it?
I don't remember, and I was thinking of that on the drive home.
Dunka Dairy Farm or something?
Yeah, whatever it was. Those people went on to write Bionic Commando's dialogue. But no, it's totally weird, but it's one of those things.
I can say you can still watch it. I think it's on Hulu. You go and watch a few episodes.
Yeah, it is.
I know me and Matt checked out a few. And it brought back some memories. I mean, it's cheesy. It's the 80s, but still, like, Mrs. Achmanik or Ouch My Neck.
No, I always loved how in the intro, it's like, you see his furry hand sticking out. He's filming the family. And then there's one point where he sets the camera down, and he walks up in front of the camera, full body shot. And he was never shot that way on the show. He was always like, a puppet or whatever from, like, behind a couch or something.
Actually, I think for a few episodes he was, because... they had the body double, like, midget guy.
Well, that's what I'm saying. In the intro, you see this guy walk out, and it's totally like no facial movement. He's just like a midget in a suit.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like the rest of the shots, which are more expressive in the face and everything.
Right. So, I mean, I think he's on there, but it's such a charming, like, idea, even.
I remember being really mad. I came home once, and Matt had taped over Miami Mice from Sesame Street with a couple Alf episodes, and I was like, no. But yeah, that's some Alf memories.
Underoos.
Hey Willie.
Yeah.
That's what it was like, theater of the mind. So that is going to wrap it up for this week. If you have any geeky memories you'd like to share, you can let us know on our website, which is growing-up-geek.com. And as always, you can follow Rob throughout the week on Twitter at twitter.com/GUGRob. I think that's going to do it. So once again, my name is Brad.
Normally I'd say something funny right now, but I just wanted to thank the people who have been adding me at my Twitter. iFester, Tav72. Thank you so much for your comments.
Yeah, thanks again, and we'll see you next week.